Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Scholar Chit Chat. And today I'm your host, OJ. And as always, we're here to bring exciting and fresh information for you. And today we'll be talking about the MOE Taiwan Scholarship Program. And we have, as always, someone who has gone through the process, who will be shedding more light on all you need to know and what you need to do to be considered for the scholarship. So please join me in welcoming Raphael. Welcome, Raphael. We're very, very honored to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invite. And, I'm glad that I'm here, and I look forward to sharing with you guys everything that I know about studying in Taiwan and the MOE Taiwan Government Scholarship.
Thank you so much. Super thrilled to have you. Before we go into the scholarship, I want our listeners to kind of get to know you. So can you please share a bit about your background?
Okay. Well, first of all, in case you're listening to this, I'm Nigerian, and I did my bachelor's in the University of Nigeria, where I studied pharmacy. And due to my interest to go into more of drug discovery research, I started looking forward to opportunities abroad, and I had noticed that there seems to be a very big competition for applicants in the US, Canada, Australia, and some parts of Europe. And I've always been interested in a fully funded scholarship. So when I started noticing the idea to continue with my career, especially with respect to drug discovery research, I started looking for a place where I can have the opportunity to upgrade or build my profile so I can stand out and become a competitive applicant. And my whole target was Asia. Frankly speaking, I made only few applications outside of Asia for the first time. So with focusing on Asia, I discovered the Taiwan. I never knew about Taiwan until 2021. And that was how I got to know about the universities in Taiwan. And I went there, did my master's. I did master's in pharmaceutical sciences. Then right now, I'm a PhD student at the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor in the United States. And currently doing research on applied computational chemistry and peptide synthesis. Yeah.
Well, that's such a journey, and it's very, very interesting background that you've shared there. And I think you are right. A lot of times when people think about studying abroad, US obviously comes to mind, and a lot of European countries. And people rarely think about Asia, and people also don't think about Africa because there are also some, I would say, pretty good scholarships in Africa. But yeah, Asia,
True.
Taiwan is also, and also when people think about Asia, I don't think Taiwan comes to mind. Like, we think maybe South Korea, China, bigger countries.
It's a very wonderful island and beautiful place, very developed. Yeah, so I had that kind of mindset. But right now, that is changing. I've been doing massive awareness when it comes to studying in Taiwan. And ever since I went to Taiwan, it's been, we'll probably discuss that in detail, but it's been wonderful. So a lot of people are beginning to catch up now.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, your story, and introducing yourself to us. So, I think you've talked a bit about this, how you heard about the scholarship. I think it was, I don't know, did you externally hear about it, or it was purely based on your research, as you stated?
Okay. So look at how it worked. First of all, when I discovered about Taiwan, I just focused on making applications to the universities in Taiwan, right? In fact, I discovered about Taiwan almost when most applications are closing. So only some of the schools that still had their applications open were the schools that I was able to apply to. Then when I was going through the university website, I discovered they had, because I was looking at, funding opportunities. So I discovered that they had what is known as the MOE Taiwan Government Scholarship on the university website. So on reading about the MOE Taiwan Government Scholarship, I discovered how I can go ahead to make those applications. So these are independent discoveries. It wasn't like I knew about the MOE, and it wasn't like I knew about how you can use the MOE to study in Taiwan in the first place. So I only got to know about the MOE from the university website.
Awesome. Okay, that's pretty cool to know. So can you please share with us your discovery, what the MOE Taiwan Taiwan government scholarship is for those who are hearing about it for the first time?
Okay, thank you. So the Ministry of Education, MOE, Taiwan Government Scholarship is right now I can tell you that as an international student who is interested in studying in Taiwan, it's one of the best scholarship you can have. In fact, it's the highly ranked scholarship you can get if you're interested in studying in Taiwan. And they have other scholarships depending on the country where you're coming from. They have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If your country have diplomatic ties with Taiwan, then good and fine. You're eligible for MOFA. But as a Nigerian, I'm eligible for MOE scholarship. I'm also eligible for a couple of other scholarships, which are the university scholarships. Now, the good thing about Taiwan is this. When you look at most of the universities in Taiwan for graduate school applications, you would always be considered for the university scholarship once you are applying. So if you stand a chance of getting admission, you will automatically be considered for a scholarship. Rarely are people not given scholarship. Now, when these scholarships have different categories, like for instance, my school, Taipei Medical University, they have different categories of scholarship. They have the government scholarship, which is the MOE. They have the type 1 or type A. They have the type B. Now, type A is for those who are interested in doing a master's degree and PhD. So type A is you get the school scholarship that will cover your tuition and also give you stipend. Then while type B is the one that will only take care of your tuition and you will be able to work and take care of your stipend. And there's type C, which is I think type C is is the one that you don't get any of those offers. So I don't know if I'm mixing it up, but yes, there is a university scholarship that you can also be considered for, and you're automatically considered for those types depending on your credentials and how good an applicant you are. But most universities do this consideration. Then the MOE is like the special type of scholarship that if you apply, now it depends because you're going to apply from your country. So if you are you're able to get the MOE scholarship, then you can use it to study in any of the universities in Taiwan, any university of your choice.
Oh, wow. That's quite a detailed response. I feel like there are many who have many ways for us to going through more detail in various parts of what you just mentioned.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll be doing. But thank you so much for that very detailed background. So I think before we start going into bits and pieces of the scholarship process, can you please share with us what the scholarship covers? You kind of hinted at it by your response that there's one that covers your tuition and stipend. Does it also cover things like maybe your visa cost and travel and other sort of things?
No, it doesn't. The MOE, just like a lot of scholarships out there, only few scholarships cover travel cost and all that. So MOE scholarship does not. So basically what happens is this. So the MOE covers your tuition and approximately or about they give for your tuition, because you're not going to know about it because it's a fully funded scholarship. But your tuition is almost equaling to about 40,000 new Taiwan dollar, which is approximately about 1,200 USD. So that is what the tuition cover from MOE is. Now, they have a list of universities because, like you said, we'll probably go into details from time to time, but they have a list of universities that does programs in English, which you can apply for, that are also eligible that you can use MOE scholarship to study in. And some of these universities, there's also a list from the Taiwan government of the universities that can be able to cover any excess on tuition that you have. So like, for instance, my university, Taipei Medical, and so many other universities. The funny thing is, most of the universities that accept so many programs in English also does this full coverage. So if your tuition is about 60,000 NTD and the MOE is paying 40,000 NTD on your behalf, the university is going to cover the 20,000 NTD. You understand? So that is for the tuition. Then, if you are going for undergraduate program, you get a stipend from MOE of 15,000 NTD, which is about approximately, I don't know the exchange rate right now, but about 400 monthly. Then for a master's and PhD, you get about 620 US dollars, which is about 20,000 NTD, new Taiwan dollar. So the basic thing is, I know some people will see this amount and be like, oh, it's a very small amount of money, but it depends on the cost of living, right, in Taiwan. So 20,000 NTD, it's a lot. I mean, coming from a place where you don't even get funding for anything you're doing, so it's a lot. It covers a lot because the basic cost of living is not up to. I mean, if as a single person you can find an apartment that you can pay, like the place I lived before I left Taiwan for the US, I was paying 5,500 new Taiwan dollar as my monthly rent. So I had almost more than 10,000 and extra of my stipend. So and food is not that expensive, and in fact the equivalent of cooking and the amount you spend cooking and the amount you spend eating out is almost the same. Most families in Taiwan do not even cook. So I don't know if I went too deep into this, but yeah, that's the cost that MOE covers. Yeah.
No, please go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so no, I was just saying, so that's exactly what I can. Then there's also this, alongside with the MOE scholarship, there's also what is known as the Huayu Enrichment Scholarship. It comes together with like MOE during application, but this is for those who are interested in studying the Mandarin, Chinese language, right? So those ones, they also get like the stipend of 25,000 NTD. It's about $800, but it's only for a maximum of 1 year because the language program, some of them are like 9 months, 1 year. The good thing is they have full funding for this language study.
Awesome. I mean, to go into a lot of details, thank you so much. And I think that it's one thing I can get from your response is the fact that it's a very generous stipend, and I agree with you that a lot of times the stipend is not necessarily about what it amounts to in USD.
Yeah.
It's about what is actually how it relates to the living costs. So yeah, as long as the money can, pay. I feel like if your stipend you can pay your rent with less than, I think, a third or about a third of your income, that's very good already, because it means you still have 2/3 of your stipend to eat and do everything you want to do. So yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. So I feel like a lot of people are very curious because like this is what was promised from the episode, how to actually apply for the scholarship. So please, can you take us into the steps prospective applicants can take to apply for the scholarship?
Okay, so first of all, before you can go ahead to make your MOE applications, you need to apply to the universities because these applications are independent. So you cannot apply to MOE and say you're applying to universities. You cannot apply to universities and say you're applying for MOE. So because the MOE Taiwan Government Scholarship is handled by the Taiwan government and most especially the embassy or trade office of Taiwan in your home country. So then that of the universities are handled by the university. So the first thing you have to do is most of the universities begin their application adverts for 4 semesters around October, November. So that is when most of the universities open up applications for the fall semester. They also have spring semester, but it's usually very competitive and there's usually no funding. And again, the MOE scholarship only starts from the fall semester. So you cannot be applying for spring and you be looking for MOE scholarship because it wouldn't tally with the time frame. because you might already be in Taiwan when you've already started your spring admission offer, and by then MOE is yet to be out, because most times MOE adverts are usually posted in January of every year or February. So by the time you start your application late every year, around that October, you must have applied to most of your universities of choices. Then when MOE advertises their scholarship in January or February, then what you need to do is, when I applied for the MOE scholarship, there is no online application. But because I have a lot of people that I mentor right now, you have to apply online. And also, in addition to application online, you have to submit your application packages at the Taipei Trade Office, in this case in Lagos if you're from Nigeria, or any other Taipei Trade Office or embassy that covers your region. So you can mail it to them, or you can go there in person. I personally prefer to do everything myself, even though when I applied, a friend of mine helped submit the application. After I packaged it, you get your record. Just basically all the necessary applications you made when you were applying to the university, you just have to get most of the copies and include it in your application. Like your application form from the university, you get a recommendation letter from your professors sealed in an envelope. So basically, it has to be a confidential recommendation letter, sealed in an envelope, probably signed and stamped. So every application, all those applications you made to the university, you put everything in that package while applying for the MOE Taiwan Government Scholarship. You also have some of the forms from the MOE you can download from their website, from the trade office or embassy, and you fill those forms. Then the essays, which is about personal, they ask you about your study plan. So you write your study plan, and so you basically package everything and put it in an envelope and send it to the Taipei Trade Office. Probably sometimes you can get your admissions before the MOE scholarship comes out, but MOE will probably be announced around probably April, May. I think either April, May, or June, within that time frame. So, and also, if you are coming from a country that is English speaking, you don't actually need to write or for a lot of universities in Taiwan, you don't. You just have to present an evidence that you have been instructed in English in your previous study. But if you're coming from a non-English speaking country, you're applying for a program that is English based, then you probably have to present maybe an English test, IELTS or TOEFL or any exam, I don't know. So, but if your program that you want to apply for is based on Mandarin language, then you're also required to provide a test of Chinese as a foreign language, TOCFL. But most of the international students I know are coming from an English speaking country, and they really do not necessarily have to write any English test. So basically, that's what the application documents are. But definitely, so you have to have I think you put a copy of your international passport. Then it's more like you just scan your passport, print it out, or something like that. Attach it. Then you have all your documents that you use in applying for these universities, like your certificates and your transcripts. And that's basically most of the requirements. It's not really there's no so much requirements. There's also a document that is known as the Taiwan Scholarship Terms of Agreement, which you can download from the website, and you have to fill that agreement. You have to sign the agreement, and that's it.
Thank you so much for going into all the details. I wrote a number of points, and I think it's good to know that people who are from English-speaking countries don't necessarily have to write an English proficiency exam, so that's really handy because that's extra cost. And then you mentioned that everybody who's applying for the scholarship from Nigeria, for instance, has to go to the trade office or embassy in Lagos. So it can only be submitted in Lagos, I guess. So there's no office office in Abuja, right?
No, there's no office in Abuja. They only have their office in Lagos. In fact, specifically, the address is 23A Thompson Avenue, Ikoyi, Lagos.
Okay, thank you so much. That's such a handy detail to have. And as well, you mentioned that the application documents that people need is essentially quite similar to what they would have used for
the university applications. Yes.
So yeah, your application form. You also need a copy of your international passport, and then you have to sign that agreement.
Taiwan Scholarship Terms of Agreement.
Yes. So those are like the major thing that has to happen. And of course, there's the application online. An application has to be made online, even though the document is going to be submitted in person as well.
Yes. I usually advise my mentees apply online. When you are done with your application online, package everything you have. For the reference letters, by the way, or the recommendation letters, 2 are usually recommended. You can get those from, let's say, for instance, you can get those from your department, the head of department where you graduated, or the dean of the faculty, or even your professors, basically. So it's not really, but maybe I could share exactly, what I did. I don't know if it's still applicable right now, but I've mentored people who have secured the MOE scholarship. In fact, since 2021, I've had people that I've been mentoring that have always secured the MOE scholarship every year. So one of the things I did was I got a recommendation letter from the registrar of my university. And like I said, these recommendation letters are supposed to be put in an envelope and sealed. So the applicant is not supposed to see the content of the envelope. Now, how did I do it? Like I said, you have to have enough time. That's why you have to know about these things on time so you can begin to prepare. So I wrote a letter to the university seeking a recommendation letter from them for the application that I'm making, the MOE scholarship. So I got a recommendation letter from the registrar of the school, of my school, the University of Nigeria. So then and it was sealed in an envelope as well. Then I got a recommendation letter from my professor, who also sealed it in an envelope and signed across the envelope. So I got these things hard copy, they're more like in hand, and I now put everything, including all my application packages, into the envelope, which I sealed and eventually sent to the Taipei Trade Office. So what I was trying to point out was that I've mentored people who never got a recommendation from the registrar. In fact, for 2 consecutive years now, I've had mentees who got the MOE scholarship, and they only got their recommendation from their professors as well as their undergraduate supervisors. So it's not a necessity, but that was what I did. So I just wanted to be very accurate about my own process.
Awesome. Okay, so when you say like professors, do you mean like professors in like their undergraduate university as well as
Yes, their undergraduate university. It's important that you have someone who can testify to your capability, especially when it comes to research, and your ability to basically be of good sound mind, and and all that people can put up on recommendation letter to show that you're a good candidate. So yes, and most people who can do that are people who know your capacity, basically. So basically I always advise people, if you finish from a place where you're supposed to do a project by the end of your undergraduate study or your master's, then you get recommendation from your supervisor or PI. Once you have that recommendation, then you can get another recommendation from a professor from your program. So if that person is not available, then you can also get from maybe the dean of the faculty or the head of department. So usually people who can testify to your capacity and your ability to succeed as a graduate student.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. That there are different levels that people can like get recommendation letters from. So people don't necessarily have to go for the registrar. They can also go for HOD. Then you can also go for, your supervisor. I think is a constant sort of, because that's the person that's closest to you. Yeah, so thank you so much for shedding light. I think one thing you just mentioned as well in your response is about time. So you're like, you have to do the about the process and time so that you can apply. And I was wondering if you can give a kind of overview of the application cycle. I know you mentioned that universities, you can apply to universities from like October, and then the MOE itself starts in like January, February. So what like the deadline to apply to universities, and then what's like the deadline to also apply to the MOE? I guess I don't know if it fluctuates annually or
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, sorry. So it fluctuates annually. Even the MOE adverts fluctuates annually. Like this year, it was advertised on 9th of January on the Taipei Trade Office. I think the deadline is going to be on May 15th. So, and they will be able to notify successful applicants from when again.
June.
I think, I was like thinking maybe, I think it fluctuates, but from May 30th, applicants should be able to, applicants should be able to get notification, yes, on the successes of their MOE application. And all you need to do is when you get the MOE scholarship, you just have to send your MOE letter to the university, and that's it. There's no rigorous processes.
So what about like for the universities? Because you said people have to apply to the university separately.
Yes.
Separately here.
Yeah. So different universities have different timelines. So, but for instance, depending, most times they advertise for both fall and spring at the same time. So like I said, and spring admission, even when you get spring admission, it's like you're in a hurry, because most times you get the offer maybe around January or February, and they're telling you to start around April or May. So there's no really enough time to prepare. So I usually advise my mentees to apply for fall, but it's okay if you can apply for spring and still get funding anyway. So the timeline is usually most times different universities advertise from October, November, or even sometimes in September. But as at December, almost every university application will be on. And it depends also. Some of them also have like admissions in badges or applications in badges. You could see, for instance, China Medical University, where my mentees recently three of my mentees got admitted, and with full funding just about 3 or 4 days ago. They advertised since last year around November, and they've taken the badge A. They've been able to offer admission and scholarships to batch A. Now batch B is still ongoing. The application for batch B is still ongoing for the same fall semester. So it depends. So I think the best thing is if you eventually find, now there's a list of the universities that offer different programs in English. So I usually refer people to that list, which you can find on the Taipei Trade Office website for the MOE advert. So you see a list of all the universities in Taiwan and the various programs that they offer in English. Because if you go for programs that are offered in Chinese, then you have to present an evidence of Chinese language. But with the English, if you're coming from an English-speaking country, then you don't have to. But if you're coming from a non-English speaking country, then you have to probably present an evidence. So now, with that list, you'll be able to know the various schools that offer the desired program and based on English language. So when you find those ones, then you go to each of the school websites with their previous handbook. Let's say you are interested in studying in Taiwan for 2026 and interested in MOE scholarship. The handbooks that are all on the websites of various universities in Taiwan for 2025 can give you a guide as to when they will probably advertise and how you can be able to go about it. So it's important to start early, and you can do that by looking at what the prospectus or the handbook from the university looks like for the previous years. Yeah, so such is the timeline. So sometimes it differs, sometimes it does. But I know that as at December, every December, you would know all the universities must have opened up applications.
Awesome, thank you for that tip. So it's handy that to know that we can like look back to the previous handbooks to get like an idea of what would happen subsequently. Yeah, so thank you so much for that tip. I mean, it was quite interesting when you mentioned that also the document that lists all the universities and the courses they offer in English. So that's also a very, very handy tip. And I hope that listeners who are looking into this scholarship will also check for that. And I think one thing I was curious about is when you mentioned your mentee that had already gotten funding, I'm guessing this is the university's funding, which is different from the MOE.
Thank you. That is the university funding. It covers the tuition and they get a stipend of about 10,000 NTD. Yes.
So they no longer need the MOE, or can they?
No,
MOE
they can't. In fact, they are still applying for the MOE, which has a deadline. Because once you get the MOE, it supersedes the university offer. Of course, no university wants to spend their own money.
Yeah.
So when you get the MOE, it supersedes the university offer, so you can decide on which one you want to use and study. I mean, who doesn't want 20,000 NTD over 10,000 NTD monthly? Yeah. So that's how it works. So my mentees are currently applying for the MOE scholarship.
Awesome. That's really, really great. So yeah, thank you so much. Sam, I'm also getting that for this scholarship, you can apply to multiple universities, right?
You can apply for multiple universities. In fact, when you are applying for the MOE scholarship, you have a place where they're asking you for the universities you're applying to. I don't know if programs are there, but I know you can list the universities you're applying to so that when you eventually get into any one of them, you can use the MOE and study there.
Is there like a maximum, or there's no maximum? Like you can just apply?
I don't think there's a maximum. Yeah. Okay. But when I applied, funny enough, like I said, I applied when it was almost deadline for most universities. So I applied to only one university, which is the Taipei Medical University, and that was the school I got in Taiwan. Though then I had offers from some universities in China, but the funding was not coming through, and some of them also had partial funding. But I mean, I had to choose the one with the full funding.
I see. Well, that's very interesting. I mean, that's super fortunate that you did it with one university. And surprisingly. That's great. That's really great. So I think you've mentioned that you can get this at the undergraduate level, master's level, and at the PhD level. Is there any difference in the application requirement?
No, there is none, but definitely you would expect that of the graduate application will be harder than this. But at the end of the day, the question is, what's your study plan? And that is where everything lies in. If you're able to give them a concrete study plan about why you want to study in Taiwan and what you want to do when you go to Taiwan, then I think that's going to be the major the major criteria for them to decide. So if you have a good study plan, then good and fine. So but I would want to also, because I just remembered this, I would want applicants to know that Taiwan is a place that, I don't know, like it's a place that is full of culture. I love the culture over there. So, and if you end up getting like the university scholarship and you don't get the MOE, because for instance, the MOE, the advert on the website, the MOE scholarship is usually offered to only 3 people, and that's the problem. So it's a very competitive scholarship. So it's only 3 people that can get 3 applicants that can be offered the MOE scholarship per year. Then the Huayu enrichment, which is for the language, only 2. So at the end of the day, you have like 5 every year.
From all over the world, or from Nigeria?
From Nigeria, not all over the world, from Nigeria. So it depends. So what will happen is, if you are coming from, depending on where you are, you need to check for the trade office that covers your country. For Taiwan, that's where you can be eligible to apply. So this scholarship only covers, but I don't quite get it that much. But I know that countries like Ghana don't have Taipei trade office. So if you are from Ghana and you got admitted in Taiwan and you're trying to do some documentation, you have to go to Nigeria. They have, like, I don't know the website, but they have like this website where they have their offices, embassies, and trade offices, and the coverage. So I think somebody from Ghana can also get the MOE scholarship from Nigeria. So because the office covers. So I think that is how it works.
Yeah, I see. Okay, that's great to know. So yeah, I mean, it's clearly very competitive. It's just three people out of hundreds of millions of people,
Yeah,
or
it's
like
very
thousands of people
competitive.
that would apply, I
A-
guess.
And and you know the funny thing, I only got to know about this when I had already gotten the MOE scholarship. Surprisingly, I never saw that. Like I never saw that the only three people can be given the scholarship until I already had it. So it was like mind blowing. I'm like, wow, how did this happen?
Ah, wow. Again, now you were very, I guess, the scholarship was for you, I guess. It was for
Yeah,
you.
I guess you can say that again.
So yeah, that's really nice. Thank you so much for like highlighting all these points. And you've also kind of gone ahead to start talking about something I want to ask next, which is about the selection criteria. So you said the major determinant is the study plan. I guess that's the thing that gives somebody the edge. So we're going to talk about what the selection criteria is. How can applicants make themselves stand out and make themselves competitive enough to win?
Okay, so I would say that for the MO, because remember that these applications are independent, both getting the admission and the MOE scholarship. So, but since we're focusing on MOE scholarship, which I would also say is still something that is applicable to the universities, I would think that one of the application consideration or the way they look at the application is more of in a holistic manner. So it's not just about your study plan or whether you had a first class or you had a third class. Or I've mentored someone with a flat third class who is currently on MOE scholarship in Taiwan. So I think aside from your results, like your CGPA and all that, you need to know. That's why I think I was trying to stress on study plan. If you have a good study plan, both if you're going for undergraduate, master's or PhD, I think you have a high chance of getting the scholarship. And the study plan entails you answering why Taiwan, why the program you want to do in Taiwan, and also what you intend to do when you are in Taiwan within the short period of time you have. For masters, you have 2 years. So, and okay, I'm just remembering. Also, one of the good things also is if you're going for a master's program and you finish your master's, you can still renew your MOE scholarship for PhD. But you can only get MOE scholarship for 3 years for a PhD program. So, but if you're going for undergraduate and you get undergraduate admission and you get MOE scholarship, you can also renew it for a master's program.
Mm-hmm.
So these things work. And if you get the Huayu enrichment, and before you finish your language program, you get the admission for undergraduate, in case you're going for undergraduate or masters, the likelihood that you can get the MOE scholarship is also high. Because my colleague who also got the MOE scholarship, he's currently doing his PhD in his university, where he also did his master's in Taiwan. I intended to do that if I hadn't gotten admission elsewhere. So he also got his MOE scholarship renewed for his PhD.
That's really great. So I guess for applicants, it's mostly knowing that you should be able to answer those very important questions when you're writing your essay or when you're writing
Study plan, yeah, which is like still SOP for them. Yeah, but basically they just ask you your study plan.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, so prospective applicants, please do take note of this and I guess focus all your attention on the study plan and try to be someone who has like I guess a holistic or a well-rounded profile. I guess is what word I would use for that, a well-rounded profile. So I'm saying that we're kind of just through the time. We're trying to think about questions that will be that maybe we'll be curious about. Okay, so we talked about money and how it's a general stipend. Let's talk about something else that people normally wonder about sometimes when it comes to scholarship and leaving the country, and that's about like if they could bring dependents along with them, and if the dependents can work, and if the stipend will be generous enough to support maybe the dependents, well, those kind of family-oriented people. Is this a friendly scholarship?
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's a very nice question. So, a lot of things change, and that is why I don't usually dissuade people from trying out an opportunity. Because when I was part of what guided my interest to going to the United States was because of the fact that I knew eventually that someday I'm going to get married and I would want my partner to be with me. And when I was in Taiwan, a lot of people who were married were finding it difficult to bring their partner from Nigeria. So I don't know about other countries, but specifically for Nigeria, it was a little bit harder. And so that's actually, influenced, because I love Taiwan. I love Taiwan so much. In fact, if after my PhD I get an offer to return to Taiwan and work there, I'll take it swiftly. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, I'm serious. It's a beautiful place. It's peaceful. It's quiet. People think, oh, Taiwan is not an English-speaking country, but oh my goodness, the number of people who speak English there would amaze you. And most times, because they are very shy people, many of them know how to speak English, but they just don't want to. So funny enough, I found myself asking people then, do you speak English? And they'll just be like, very little. That's what you hear. You can ask anyone. So I think it's probably still applicable to those in mainland China. So when you ask them, do you speak English? You'll be like, very little. But they do speak English. So it's a very beautiful place. So for that of family, it was then I noticed it was a little bit difficult for people. But that's also because of the kind of there was someone in the Taipei trade office. I don't think she's there now. She really made things very difficult for a lot of Nigerians. She's Nigerian. For a lot of Nigerians, even with MOE scholarship, she would drill you with regards to visa application. But it's no longer like that. Okay. I need you guys to know that it's no more like that. So now I feel if I know someone in Academia Sinica, which is a research institute, but you can also do a PhD over there. So Academia Sinica, I know someone there whose wife joined him, a couple of years ago. So there's I don't have a restriction to these things. I just feel like when you make your plans, you just strategize. Have plans A, B, C. What if plan A does not work? But I know that I wouldn't say that I have a concrete answer to this particular question, but I would just say that it's flexible. It can work, it may not work. But bringing family is something that I know that could be difficult, especially for Nigerians. But also, when your wife eventually joins you, or if your wife eventually joins you, working is not an issue. Most people teach English or work in restaurants and earn wonderful amount of, they pay them very well. In fact, I know people who never got any type of funding, but because they are doing the part-time work, they are earning so much. They even send money home. So, but one of the things that most international students do in Taiwan is teaching English. Yeah, and sometimes also depending if you're somebody who is STEM inclined, you can have a lab where you can be able to get the research assistant, graduate research assistant role, just like I did, and I was being paid extra 8,000 NTD. So every month I earn 28,000 NTD instead of 20,000 NTD. So my graduate research assistant stipend takes care of my rent alone, and I even have some change left. So it depends. A lot of good labs too. So a lot of things are just, I think when it comes to the aspect of bringing family, it's a tough response to give. But I think it also depends on where you're coming from, and again, the institution you are in. Like the school I went to is a private university, but it's a very well-known private university. It's like one of the best universities in Taiwan. And they were very supportive back then, but I didn't have a partner then to bring. So I never really tried.
Right, thank you so much for that. So at least that's quite good to know that it's complicated, but it's possible. So it's not it may not be too super straightforward, I guess. Another question that people ask as well is about post-scholarship obligations. So is there like an opportunity to stay back? Is there like maybe a post-study visa? Or do you have to leave as soon as you're done with your master's or your studies? Let me not say master's, as soon as you're done with your studies. I mean, you've mentioned the possibility of like extending, but let's say you've done like you don't want to do a PhD, for instance, and you did a master's, or you've done your PhD, and is there, how does that look like?
So there are a lot of I know a lot of people who finished one or two graduate study programs and they stayed back in Taiwan. If you can find a job, like I said, most of the jobs that people do, which gives them, there are jobs you can be doing and you just have enough time for other things that you want to do. So I know a lot of people who stay back and they just, if they want to teach English or they want to work in an industry, Taiwan has a lot of industry. Even though you would benefit more if you can speak the language, but I know some people who eventually got opportunities in working for some companies in Taiwan, but there are few. But I know what most people do is they teach English. So yes, after you are done with your study, if your visa expires, you can get an extension of 6 months to look for a job or look for something to be doing. If after the 6 months you still haven't gotten anything, you can still extend it. So you're not mandated to leave the country immediately after your study. No, you're not. So you can stay back and look for some post-study opportunities. And if you're not getting it, you can still extend until you find some, or until you probably get tired and be like, okay, let me just change environment or go back home.
Okay, that's helpful to know. At least I think that's encouraging for some people who may want to try like you now. You've very obviously stated that you really love Taiwan. You would have loved to stay back. So I'm sure there'll be people like that as well who will be like, okay, what if I go there and I want to make it life there? Is that an option for me? So it's really great to know about that. And you mentioned the fact that learning the language would be helpful. I know you said like the degrees are in English, or some of the degrees are in English, and so people can opt to take that. But like for you, I believe you took an English one. Did you have to learn Mandarin, or did you pick up the language at all?
I actually made I'm laughing at myself because I actually made an attempt now. So basically, it was not MOE scholarship does not mandate you to learn the language, but MOFA does, especially for those who are going to be applying for MOFA whose country have good ties with Taiwan. So MOFA does, but MOE does not. So I didn't. At first, I didn't want to learn the language because it wasn't necessary. I was communicating well with almost everyone. Even an average person who does not understand English, at least you can communicate by sign or stuff like that, and they would understand you. So, and everybody uses mobile phones, so you can even translate for those local people that you might not be able to communicate to very well. So what I did was towards my finals, I enrolled for an English program, for a Mandarin language program in my school, which is offered. Almost all the university can offer it, you can take it. So, but I had to drop it because there's a two-way of teaching Mandarin. There's a Pinyin form. Pinyin is like writing it what they speak, but writing it as if it's in English. So it's more easier for me to learn with Pinyin. Like when you say something like ni hao, it's like NIHAU. Ni hao, yeah. So ni hao. So that's how Pinyin is. But when they start writing it in their language, in the calligraphic form, it becomes a problem. So I had difficulty with that. So we were being taught with Pinyin at first. It was easy. I was learning until I don't know what just happened, but the teacher switched. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. So because I had a lot of things going on, so I had to drop. So, but I'm very sure if anybody can, persist, maybe have patience, maybe I didn't have patience, and learn it, it's going to be. And again, Mandarin or Chinese is becoming a global language. Where will you go to in this world right now that you won't find a Chinese professor or a PI who is Chinese? And imagine if you can speak his language or her language. So much like English, I think Chinese is also a language that is very necessary globally, just like French is. So I didn't really take the course. I didn't take the language course. Yeah,
I can understand. I can relate to the fact that learning languages can be quite frustrating, especially as you said, when you go into calligraphy. Like you can still learn the pronunciation if you are saying words that you're quite I can only imagine. So I think one thing I realized I hadn't even said at all, or kind of made some reference to, but not explicitly. I know from the conversation that an undergraduate degree is 3 years. I think you said PhD is 3 years as well. How about the master's?
The master's is 2 years. The PhD is 4 years. Then the undergraduate is 4 years.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much for clarifying that, and thank you so much for your time and for going to very all the details. Truly, I feel like I'm very ready to apply for the Taiwan scholarship right now, and I know how to start and have a very good idea. So I just want you to give listeners, prospective applicants, your final thoughts, final words of advice for them as they undertake the application process.
Well, my final word of advice is this: just like life is very dynamic, it's important that as a human, you make your options very dynamic. Whatever your dream is, as long as it has to do with you building on your career or getting more qualifications for the future, it's worth pursuing. So, and when you do that, it's important that you do it in a very strategic manner. Just like myself and some of my colleagues and people that I mentor, it's not been up to 3 years since I left Taiwan, and I already have more than 10 people who have been able to get offers and scholarships in Taiwan right now. So, and this year is just starting, and about 3 persons have already secured admission. And so I just think it's all about being strategic. So if your interest, I don't know, but if your interest is probably you want to eventually settle or work maybe Australia, Canada, US and all that, and especially with the funding issues that is going on in the United States right now with the government, I think it's important to be strategic with your options in order to actualize your goal. And I think one of the places you can put your interest in order to have a broad option is Asia. And one of the places in Asia that I would really and gladly advise you to give it a try is Taiwan. They have some very good universities that are highly ranked, especially within the Asian community. So broaden your options and be strategic with your decisions. And definitely you have to be patient and also engage in consistent action, because you might get rejections, but at the end of the day, rejection is just something that is on a paper and can change. So you keep making the effort, keep getting better as you make every application, and someday your story will change. Mine started from no scholarship from various universities to partial scholarship and eventually to full funding. So, but if you don't apply, if you don't make effort, if you don't persist, then I don't think you'll be able to experience all these things. So see application for graduate school or for whatever you're pursuing as an investment, and don't give up. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much for that insights. I've picked up a few things as well. You mentioned the importance of strategy. You've mentioned the importance of patience and persistence as well. Yeah, those are really, really wise insights. And thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and your experiences with us today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sure that our listeners will have found it very, very helpful. And I want to believe that you're also open to receiving DMs if there's more questions. I feel like people will slide into your DM, especially given your record of actually producing winners, and everybody actually wants to secure a scholarship. So yeah, would actually tag Raphael to our post, and feel free to reach out to him after you've done your own research and you have some things that are still unclear. We'll be happy to help you. So thank you so much, listeners, and I would say until next time, keep striving and stay inspired, and remember that opportunities like this Taiwan scholarship actually exist, and they are a gateway to incredible experiences, and they'll give you the opportunity to make a real difference in life. So see ya. Okay, and stop this.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Scholar Chit Chat. If you found our conversation insightful and enjoyable, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated. We've got a lot more in store and we don't want you to miss out.
We are always diving into topics like this: academics, scholarship, professional life, and the international student experience. It's what makes Scholar Chit Chat your go-to podcast for a fresh perspective. Also, don't keep all this wisdom to yourself. Share this episode with your friends and family who could benefit from it. We are building a community of learners and would love for you to be a part of it.
Your thoughts matter to us. We want to hear from you. Drop your comments and questions in the chat, or send your questions, suggestions, and comments to scholarchitchat@gmail.com. Your input helps shape the future of Scholar Chit Chat.